Provincial, Reverend Father Rector, Professor Raj Mohan Gandhi, faculty and staff. Gandhi believed that human beings are essentially non-violent in their nature. Non-violent means the only alternative to eradicate the beastly and antisocial tendencies from the human mind and to elevate human society to a superior plane wherein the entire humanity can live in peace and harmony. The two basic principles or ideals that guided Gandhi's life were truth and non-violence. For him, truth was God, and realizing this truth as God was the ultimate purpose of life. But you know, the society is not non-violent. It is violent. We don't speak the truth. If you speak the truth, that voice is stifled. The country is divided. People who speak the truth are persecuted. The other has become an enemy. We rally around on the principles of ethnocentrism. This is the context in which we are seated today to reflect upon, is it possible to have a non-violent society? Can Gandhian paradigm guide us all to form this society which is non-violent and truthful? For this event, which is an event that brings us all together, the initiative of the Institute of Dialogue with Cultures under the leadership of Father Maria Arul Raja and his team initiated this first. Father Rector thought that this would be an event that all of us come together, reflect upon the current context. Therefore, he was the one instrumental, Father Rector, brought us all together today here. On this theme, wanted to have a person who can reflect upon with us. Reflect together to see any way out of this mess that we have created. We have with us no other fitting person. Professor Raj Mohan Gandhi is a biographer and a research professor at the Center of South Asian and Middle Eastern Studies, University of Illinois, US. He is the grandson of Mahatma Gandhi and C. Rajagopalachari. He is also a scholar in residence at the Institute of Technology. His father, Devdas Gandhi, son of Mahatma Gandhi, was the managing editor of Hindustan Times. Raj Mohan Gandhi attended St. Stephen's College, New Delhi. His maternal grandfather was C. Rajagopalachari, second Governor General of India after Lord Louis Mountbatten, was one of the foremost associates of Mahatma Gandhi. He currently serves as a research professor at the College of Education, University of Illinois. He was part of this university's Center for South Asian and Middle Eastern Studies. In 2012, received the Sahitya Academy Award for his book titled Rajaji, A Life, a Biography of Chakravarti Rajagopalachari. From 1990 to 1992, Raj Mohan was a member of Rajya Sabha, the upper house of the Indian Parliament. Earlier, 1990, he led the Indian delegation to the UN Human Rights Commission in Geneva. Associate from 1956 with the Initiatives of Change, formerly known as Moral Rearmament, Professor Raj Mohan Gandhi served as the president of Initiative Change International in 2009 and 2010. Through his writing, speaking, public interventions and dialogues, he has been engaged for 60 years in efforts for reconciliation and democracy. In the 1960s and early 1970s, he played a leading role in establishing Asian Plotter, a 68-acre center of initiative change in the mountains of Western India, which fosters dialogue, reconciliation, and ethical governance, and is recognized on the Indian subcontinent for its sociological contribution. During 1975-77 emergency India, he was active for democratic rights personally and through his weekly journal, Himmat. Even this now is a blog. Published in Bombay from 1964 to 1981. India, Pakistan, and Hindu-Muslim reconciliation have remained his goals. Since 9/11, he has also tried to address the divide between the West and the world of Islam. Before teaching at the University of Illinois, he served as a research professor with the New Delhi think tank Center for Policy Research, and he edited the daily Indian Express in Madras, in Chennai. On behalf of Father Provincial of newly erected Jesuit Chennai province, Reverend Father Francis Xavier, the rector, the vice president of this entire Loyola College institutions, Reverend Dr. Selvanayam, the secretary of Loyola College, Reverend Dr. Thomas Amurdam, the principal, the deputy principal, Dr. Melchias, Reverend Dr. A. Sebastian, the director and secretary of Loyola College Education, Reverend Dr. Marie Venish, the director of Lisette, and all the faculty and staff. On behalf of all of them, I warmly welcome with your thunderous applause Professor Raj Mohan Gandhi, and over to you.
Thank you, Father. Gandhiji said, "You must be the change you wish to see in the world. In order to ignite the change in us, let me take the privilege of inviting Reverend Dr. Jabamalai Raja, Provincial, Chennai Province, to offer felicitation."
Dear Professor, Mr. Raj Mohan Gandhi, our Honorable Speaker of the day, our Father Rector, and heads of the institutions, my dear Jesuit companions, and members of the staff, both teaching countries in the world. The essence of our Indian constitution, such as justice, equality, and fraternity, and the stand taken by the Indian governments against all kinds of discrimination after independence, reveal its concern for human dignity and human rights. But it is still wedged in the clutches of casteism, communal violences, illiteracy, unemployment, poverty, gender inequality, and corruption. We are living in this divided, distorted, and disoriented world. People are divided on the basis of religion, caste, and culture. The disparity between the rich and poor, high castes and the Dalits and the marginalized, the powerful and the powerless, is disproportionately mounting. The gap between these disparities is widening very fast, and it is enormous. So in this context, what we need is equity, which is more than equality. Social justice is needed to uphold the rights and dignities of Dalits, tribals, migrants, refugees, and women. The society is becoming criminal and violent, where the marginalized people are forced to be the victims of such criminal and violent society. What is the meaning of non-violence in the process of empowering these victims of the violent society? So the challenge is how to build a non-violent society from already existing violent society in today's context. We need to analyze the voice of the voiceless in order to develop a new paradigm. I wish that today's lecture will throw some light on this question and may lead us to a new paradigm to address this violent and criminal society, to bring equity and social justice to the people of the periphery and to all citizens of this country. I wish you all the best. Thank you.
Thank you, Father. Satisfaction lies in the effort, not in attainment. Full effort is full victory, observed Gandhiji. In order to substantiate the effort of this special lecture, may I request Reverend Dr. Francis Xavier, Rector, to deliver the keynote address.
Reverend Father Provincial, Mrs. and Mr. Raj Mohan Gandhi, heads of the institutions, officials, administrators, respected faculty members, guests, friends, and my fellow Jesuits, good morning to you all. 3 days ago, the Supreme Court observed that Mahatma is far above Bharat Ratna, as the Mahatma resides in the hearts and minds of every Indian as the father of the nation. We are happy that Loyola celebrates this inspiring personality today to remember his 150th year. The concept of justice and fairness has been ever-changing over the time. Nearly 1,400 years before Christ, the great lawgiver Moses said, "If a man injures his neighbor, just as he has done, so it shall be done to him. Fracture for fracture, eye for eye, tooth for tooth." Some might even agree with this saying that actions are Newtonian, namely, what goes around comes around. At the same time, it is attributed to Mahatma Gandhi saying, "An eye for an eye will make the whole world blind." Jesus said about 2,000 years ago, "Whoever strikes you on your right cheek, turn to him the other also." Our divine poet Thiruvalluvar underlines the same. Even if someone does something bad or harmful to you, return it with something good. இன்னா செய்தாரை ஒருத்தல் அவர் நன்னயம் செய்துவிடல். This is bolstered by Peter, the head disciple of Jesus, as well as the first pope, saying, "Do not repay evil with evil or insult with insult. On the contrary, repay evil with blessing." This then is the outline for building a non-violent society. But the reality has not very much changed from the past to the present. In the beginning of the existence of human being, we see power struggle between the good and the evil. The evil deceives the first pair of human beings, Adam and Eve, ill-advising them to eat the apple against the instruction of the good God who created them. The fallout grows up as jealousy, as we see in the first murder in the Bible, Cain murdering his own brother Abel. Cain was jealous of his younger brother's offering, finding favor with God. Is today's scenario very much different? In the political arena, there is power struggle, and once you come to power, you divide people based on social, economic, religious, political grounds, and then try to rule them. Today, we see the power and the might first trouble the social and religious water, and then try to fish in the troubled water. As an outcome, the society, by and large, is filled with violence and hatred. We need to look to build up an alternate society, a non-violent society based on understanding and harmony. For a basic, harmonious, and non-violent community, we need understanding, reciprocal awareness, ability to deal with differences, promotion of interdependence, cooperation, and conflict resolution, which is essentially for the formation of healthy society, though conflict is a struggle for continued existence. In short, a non-violent society requires for its formation and growth both harmony and cooperation to deal with disharmony and conflict. Above all, unity is very much essential. Dr. Ambedkar would cite an example. When you throw a stone at a dog, the dog would run away. But if you throw a stone at a honeycomb, you have to run for cover, as the entire army of bees would rush to you as they are united. Mahatma Gandhi's concept of non-violent society envisions healthy and harmonized society when its members imbibe moral and ethical values. Only when people internalize them and live them out in their day-to-day lives can they build a healthy, progressive, and non-violent society. This is possible if and only if there comes up changes in human nature and attitude in order to reconstruct today's shattered society with its economic inequality, social discrimination, political sidelining, and religious conflict, etc., as differences in understanding value system and tradition breed violence. Gandhiji said, "For me, India begins and ends in villages." We have to see how this can be understood and interpreted in an age of ultra-modern and digital world. He was for ethical politics inspired by religions, but not for politics in the name of religion. This is the crux of the point at present. The vision of new and non-violent society of their character. And this dream has not been fully realized even after 56 years with so many development and modernization in the world after him. And this transforming dream should concretize as the journey to freedom, equality, and dignity of all human beings. The journey of Nelson Mandela to freedom was actually switching sides. For 10 years, he was fighting with the government through disobedience, boycotts, and other non-violent methods in order to achieve full citizenship for every single South African, white or black. Then he changed his strategy. He studied law, entered the power politics, and became the president of South Africa. As a president, he realized his dream of freedom, equality, and dignity for all. He realized that education is the key. As he said, education is the most powerful weapon which you can use to change the world. It's not the intellectual education alone, but education of one's heart that matters. Education is not merely what one knows, but education should form one how to feel for the other. Education should help one grow in sympathy and empathy for others, especially those in the lower strata of the society. Power is not to destroy others, but it is to help others come up in life and society. In his novel, War and Peace, Leo Tolstoy, who influenced the Mahatma, would say, God is the same everywhere. And we could add, human being is the same everywhere. Why then there should be conflict and violence against each other in any society? Let us look for peace and harmony. The harmony, according to the recent General Congregation of the Jesuits held in Rome in October 2016, is threefold, namely harmony with God, harmony within humanity, and harmony with our common nature, which is the broken world today. Today, our environment also becomes part of our non-violent society. We need to take it into our consideration. The outline of the nonviolent society has been given by Jesus in his famous Sermon on the Mount. He preached, "Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called the children of God." And he also gave humanity the golden rule to live in harmony and peace. He said, "Do unto others what you expect them to do to you." Our unique contribution, however small, for the good of the world makes a difference. And this has to become a ripple effect. For Mahatma Gandhi, the starting point for a non-violent society is one's conscience. Non-violence starts there with me, then it spreads to my neighbor. further it engulfs my nation, and finally it embraces the entire world. Ultimately, truth should prevail, as Jesus would confirm, as he said, "Know the truth, and the truth will set you free." I'm happy that the Institute of Dialogue with Cultures and Religions, IDCR, has organized this event to celebrate the 150th birth anniversary of our Father of the Nation with a talk by Professor Raj Mohan Gandhi. And I welcome all of you to this great event. Let this be an enlightening and enlivening experience for us all. Wish you all fruitful and enriching interaction. Thank you.
Thank you, Father. It's time for honoring. May I invite Reverend Dr. Thomas Amirtham, Principal, Loyola College, to honor our speaker with a shawl. Thank you, Father. May I request the speaker to honor Reverend Dr. Jabamalai Raja, Chennai Provincial, with a shawl. Thank you, sir. May I request Reverend Dr. Michael Amaladas, founder IDCR, to honor the speaker and provincial with gifts. Thank you, Father. May I request Mrs. Maria, staff IDCR, to honor Mrs. Usha Gandhi with a shawl. Ma'am, please come forward. Thank you, ma'am. As Gandhiji noted, glory lies in the attempt to each one's goal and not only just reaching it. The attempt of IDCR to organize to speak a few words about the speaker and also to moderate the session.
For the past 6 weeks especially, what are the fruits of these non-violent demonstrations? We will not move an inch forward or backward from our position seems to be the stand of the status quo, powers that be right now. Dr. Gandhi, do you think a non-violent slogan is a spent force? Is it a mere discourse, or is it a mere...
Thank you, sir, for this question. But before I answer your question, may I say one word?
Sure, go ahead.
Since I'm getting old now, I'm 84 plus. One advantage of getting old is that you know how little you know. The older you are, the better you know that you know very little. So I am here in a conversation with you and with all of you not to convey my great knowledge, but to learn from this interaction, but of course also to respond in the best way in which I can to your questions. You ask about the usefulness, effectiveness of nonviolence today, and you mentioned the amazing nonviolent protests that have taken place all across this country, including in Chennai, in the last 6 or 7 weeks. You did not mention, but I'm sure you would have also mentioned the amazing nonviolent protests in Hong Kong, which have taken place and have, in many ways, surprised and amazed the world. We do not know what result these protests will have. But as far as the Indian protests are concerned, my understanding is as follows. I'm referring to the non-violent protests of the last 6 or 7 weeks in different parts of India. You mentioned JNU, you mentioned Aligarh. You did not mention Jamia. And you did not mention the Shaheen Bagh protest, where these women, young women, old women, for week after week after week in the bitter cold of Delhi, very difficult cold weather of Delhi, sometimes for the whole night, with song, with unity, with discipline, with non-violence, with affirmation of the values of the Indian Constitution, they have carried on their protests. In my understanding, these protests of the last few weeks have saved the honor of India. These protests have saved the honor of India. I don't say that they have saved Indian democracy. I do not say that they have brought justice to the poorest, the most marginalized people of India. Of course, nobody can claim that. But now, as a result of these non-violent protests in which all sections of the Indian people have taken part, people of different religions have taken part, so supposing, despite these non-violent protests, after some time, India becomes, I pray it does not become, but supposing India does become a kind of Hindu state, not a state for everyone, but a state dominated by the Hindus, I pray that this does not happen. But supposing that does happen, nobody will be able to say that Indians accepted it without protest. In the last several weeks, these students, the young women and the old women in different parts of India have saved India's honor. And this may not be good enough, but I think it is something quite amazing for which we can thank the Almighty.
You rightly identified the agenda of Hindu Rashtra as one of the main elements coming forward, projected right now. In what way Gandhi the Hindu, is the microphone all right?
Yeah.
Gandhi the Hindu Gandhi versus Hindu Rashtra. Why he is against Hindu Rashtra, being a Hindu?
Gandhi was a Hindu, but from the very beginning, he was absolutely clear that India belonged to everybody. In his first writing, 1909, Hind Swaraj, Gandhi said that India does not belong only to the Hindus, that the Muslims, the Christians, the Sikhs, the Buddhists, the Parsis, the Jews, all those who live in India have an equal right to India. This he said in 1909, and he continued to say this throughout his life. As far as he was concerned, there was absolutely no reason for the Hindus to feel that they control India or have a right to India greater than the right that others have. From the beginning, that was his belief. And he ensured, as many of you may know, he lived till 1948. He lived to see the partition that he did not want. He lived to see the partition that he opposed. He did not want India to be divided on religious lines. But Pakistan was created. And in that atmosphere of unhappiness, even hatred, and we all know that there was great violence also that took place. So in the year 46 and 47, and before Gandhi died, India saw a great deal of bitterness and anger and hatred. In some ways, the atmosphere was not very different from the atmosphere we look at today.
Okay.
But in that atmosphere, Gandhi and Nehru and Ambedkar and many other leaders of India absolutely made sure that India was not going to be a Hindu state. India was going to be a state for all, with complete freedom of belief, freedom of expression, freedom to propagate one's belief peacefully. And even in that very angry climate of 47, when Pakistan was created and many in Pakistan said Pakistan should become an Islamic state, it did not quickly become an Islamic state. It took a while for Pakistan to become an Islamic state. But these voices were very strong that Pakistan should be an Islamic state. But at that time, despite the killings, despite the fact that so many refugees had come to India from Pakistan, Gandhi and his associates made sure that India would not be a Hindu state, India would be a state for all. Gandhi was aware that domination and cruelty by any group over any other group would result in terrible misery. Gandhi was aware that the white person's domination over India brought hardship to the Indian people. Gandhi was aware that the high caste domination in India brought misery and suffering to the low caste and the so-called untouchables in India. And Gandhi did not want also a religious domination by one group over other groups in India. Gandhi was also very keen that India should offer some kind of example to the world. Gandhi was aware of the strife and the divisions all over the world. Gandhi never thought that India was going to be the world's teacher. Gandhi did not believe that India was going to be a world guru. Absolutely not. But Gandhi wanted India to be like a brother or a sister or a friend, a compassionate friend to humanity. So for the sake of the world, as well as for the sake of the people of India, Gandhi wanted an India of equality, where no one group would dominate over any other group.
Good. There are layers of oppression: colonial oppression, caste oppression, patriarchal oppression, economic oppression, and multiple forms of oppression. Quite often, the allegation leveled against unabated even today. And to what extent Gandhi has been instrumental in alleviating the sufferings of the untouchables, and thus Gandhi really have the agenda of annihilation of casteism in the Indic soil?
Thank you for asking a very important, a much discussed, a very relevant question. Gandhi was a remarkable man, but he was a human being. He was not God. He was not a magician. Sometimes some people feel that Gandhi should have solved all the problems of his time and also all the problems of our time. Yes, Gandhi wanted India to be independent. Gandhi wanted Hindus and Muslims to become friends. Gandhi wanted the caste Hindus to feel and recognize their oppression of the lower castes. He said that again and again and again. Gandhi wanted the so-called untouchables of India to be liberated and to be proud and to have dignity and to have their rights. Gandhi wanted the women of India also to have their rights. But Gandhi could not fight all the battles simultaneously. So he was sometimes emphasizing Indian independence, sometimes emphasizing Hindu-Muslim reconciliation, sometimes emphasizing the need for the untouchables and the lower castes to have their rights. He also, as he continued with his life, he had to alter his strategy from time to time. There is a very, very interesting recent book on this question. It's called Gandhi Against Caste, written by a man called Nishikant Kolge, a very interesting academic, which is worth studying. And Kolge writes like this, and this is also is in agreement with my own research. Kolge says that in his own personal life, in his home, in his ashrams, in his centers, the fight against untouchability was very strong. And everyone knows of that incident when he was really quite harsh against his wife for the sake of the untouchable Christians in his home in Durban in South Africa.
Okay.
These were South Indians, and these were of Christian background, but they also had come from a so-called untouchable background, and they lived in Gandhi's home in South Africa when he was a young man. And Gandhi wanted his wife to treat this person with great honor and respect. And when Gandhi's wife did not carry out Gandhi's wishes in connection with this guest in his home, this guest from a Dalit and Christian background, Gandhi he lost his temper with his wife. That's a well-known story. And there were similarly strict rules in his ashram. And when he returns to India, he has this ashram, and some Dalits join the ashram. His wife and some close associates of his say, we can't have this ashram with the Dalits staying with us, eating with us, living under the same roof. So Gandhi then said to his close relative and close associate, Magan Lal Gandhi, and Magan Lal Gandhi's wife, Santokh Ben Gandhi, and his own wife, Kasturba Gandhi, if you don't like this, sorry, you can go. And I will stay here. Or if you want, my Dalit friends and we will go and start this ashram elsewhere. So Gandhi was prepared to pay the highest price for his ideal of equality in his own centers. But when it came to the nationwide campaign, Gandhi wanted India's independence, and of course he needed the caste Hindus for his campaign. Gandhi felt that if the caste Hindus were to abandon him, they might join the British and they might stop the independence struggle. For the sake of the independence struggle, Gandhi needed the caste Hindus, and therefore, from time to time, he went slow on his fight against caste, in his fight to annihilate caste. So he slowed his fight against caste in order to enlist the caste Hindus in his battle. So
So
this
you
is-
claim this is a sort of a strategy-based backup rather than value-based backup in terms of fighting against caste.
So yes, Gandhi, since he was a human being and he had to carry as many people as he could, he wanted India's independence, and therefore he often softened his language. He spoke about Varna Dharma. But in my understanding, his words about Varnashrama Dharma, which Periyar also was very angry about,
Yeah.
and many people in Tamil Nadu and all over India were unhappy about, and of course Dr. Ambedkar was unhappy about. That language, in my opinion, was purely tactical. It was sugar coating because he needed the caste Hindus in his battle for India's independence. And remember this, that as the years passed, Gandhi radicalized his position on caste. And he said, by the late 30s, well before India's independence, Gandhi had said that he will only attend or bless marriages if those marriages were between the Dalits and the high caste. And he supervised such marriages in his ashram. He refused to attend a marriage if it was not a marriage between a Dalit and a high caste. So he radicalized himself as the years went by. And you also know that it was Gandhi who said that he wanted a Dalit to be the first president of India. That did not happen. Nehru and Patel and many others did not agree with it. And Gandhi yielded. But Gandhi is on record saying that soon, if democracy really is to be established, we should have a Dalit head of state. And it is also true, as many of you may know, or many of you may not know, that behind the invitation to Dr. Ambedkar to enter the Constituent Assembly, to become the law minister, to become the chairman of the drafting committee of the Indian Constitution, of course, the formal invitation went from Nehru and Patel. But Gandhi was behind that invitation. Gandhi wanted Dr. Ambedkar to play the leading role in the drafting of the Indian Constitution. So with time, as independence became close, Gandhi radicalized his position on caste publicly while maintaining his radical position on caste within his ashrams.
Or we can revisit Ambedkar hyphen Gandhi, Ambedkar vis-a-vis Gandhi. We can revisit after a little while. Meanwhile, we could think of, this is the crux of the issue these days would be a discourse on the concept of nation. Nation. Some say it is a cultural nation built upon an ethos, Indic or whatever it be, or Mahabharata, or even in terms of Great Bharata and so on and so forth. Culture. Another is a sort of geographical base for constructing a nation. And this problem again is coming out again and again these days in terms of construct of nation, construct of nationalism, and the construct of nation state. And what exactly is the worldview operative behind the Gandhian principles regarding nation, nation state, and nationalism? Nation. What do you mean by nation? That's the crux of the issue today. Be it Hindu Rashtra people or be it in terms of people upholding the Indian Constitution. What is nation after all? Some say we are Tamil Nadu, nation of the Tamils. We have got the Punjabis. We have got a Telugu Desam, we call it. There is a absolute chaos regarding the nomenclature, concept, as well as the operational outlook regarding nation, nationalism, nation state. And what exactly is the vision of Gandhi regarding nation?
So you mentioned Tamil Nadu and you mentioned Telugu Desam, but in Maharashtra it is Maharashtra. It is a great nation.
It's not Chuma Rashtra, Maharashtra.
Yes. So, so India is a nation which contains many nations within it. So Gandhi's concept of nation was not a nation where any group will dominate any other group. It was a nation of equality, of equal rights. It was a nation of liberty, freedom of speech. it's very important to recognize the importance that Gandhi gave to dissent, to disagreement. When Gandhi was in South Africa, it's here. Thank you, sir. You're good.
You go ahead. You go ahead with your water. Go ahead with your water.
See, Gandhi was against domination, but he's dominating me.
I'm a humble dominator, by the way.
No, I have to be very careful with you. Gandhi had a friend in South Africa, a white man who was much younger than Gandhi. Gandhi also was very young in South Africa, but this man was much younger. This man said to Gandhi, I like you when you are in a minority. If you become part of the majority, I will not like you. And Gandhi often quoted this story of how much he was devoted to the idea of individual expression, even if you were in a small minority. So Gandhi's idea of nation was where anybody with whatever view could express their view fearlessly and would not suffer for expressing their view. And as you know, when Gandhi said that India belongs to everybody, he said this in 1909, he said it in 46, 47, that India does not belong to the Hindus only, it belongs to the Christians, to the Muslims, to the atheists, to everybody. That is why he was killed. So Gandhi was killed for his belief that India belonged to everybody. But the amazing thing is, at that difficult time, partition time, even at that difficult time, the Indian leaders and the Indian people somehow decided that India was going to be a nation for all. Now, you mentioned nationalism. In one sense, nationalism is a reality. The world does consist of nations. The world consists of nation states. There is an organization called the United Nations. It does not speak of united societies of the world. It speaks of the United Nations of the world. Nations are a reality. But Gandhi wanted no nation to dominate other nations, and most importantly, he did not want any group to dominate within a nation. And I think here I must refer to the expression ethno-nationalism, because today in the world, nationalism is sought to be replaced by ethno-nationalism. The idea is that one ethnic group has a greater right to a nation than other nation groups, other groups. The white race must dominate in the United States. The Hindu religious group must dominate in India. This is ethno-nationalism, and we see it in Turkey, we see it in Hungary, we see it in Poland, we see signs of it in France, in Germany, we see it everywhere. Ethno-nationalism, that a nation does not belong equally to everyone, that some people have a greater right to a nation than other groups. And this was a notion to which Gandhi was absolutely, steadfastly, without any hesitation, opposed.
Regarding this, in building a nation, there is always a discourse on majority people and minority people. And the complaint by some groups, especially the dominant groups, the ruling elite right now would be, somehow you are soft pedaling the minorities or giving sort of favoritism to the minorities, especially the Muslims and the Christians, the Parsis, Sikhs, and so on and so forth. What exactly is the dynamics behind majoritarianism and minoritarianism? But really speaking, if at all we browse through the statistics by way of claiming the very privileged positions in the bureaucracy or in the executive or judiciary, minority people are dominating, and they project a majority in and through religion and culture, and majoritarianism becomes a sort of a camouflage for eating into the labor of the people, large number of the workers, what you call the Shudras, Ati Shudras. So we are very much confused regarding majority versus who is a majority, who is a minority. What could be an alternative discourse for for enabling our country to build an inclusive community of all peoples, all nations, and all sorts of cultural groups so that we share the entire resources together. What is an alternative for the majoritarian minoritarian discourse from the Gandhian perspective?
You mentioned that some people argue for political reasons that the minority has been appeased. You said that favoritism towards the minority. Well, this is an amazing kind of favoritism where 14 or 15% of the Indian population are only 4% in the Lok Sabha. If the Muslims have been favored so much, we should see a higher percentage of Muslims in the legislative assemblies, in parliament, in the IAS, in the judiciary.
What about army?
Army, in the police.
It's a sad situation that in army the percentage of Muslims
is close to 1%. I don't know the actual figure, but it's very low.
It's a tragedy.
It is a tragedy. And likewise, Christians. So the argument that the minority is being appeased is, of course, a false argument. And the sad truth is that many members of the majority in India act as if they are an oppressed minority. So the majority in India has a minority complex. This is one way of putting it. Of course, if there is a discussion about what kind of arrangement we should have, often democracy says that you take agreement on the basis of a majority vote. So a majority vote often settles many issues. But on fundamental rights, on equality, on the fundamental nature of the Indian nation, a majority cannot decide. The Constitution decides. The preamble to the Constitution decides, and the Constitution decides. That is why you have courts of law. Everything is not decided by counting who is in favor and who is against. Major questions are decided by examining, is this law in accordance with the constitutional principle of equality or not? So, but what you say is so true, that despite freedom, despite democracy, the majority of people who are poor, who belong to this low caste, so-called, who belong to the so-called untouchable caste, they still lead very tragic lives of hardship and suffering. How to change that is the question of questions before all of us. And to that, I don't know what answer Gandhi would give, but I will tell you what answer Raj Mohan Gandhi will give. Raj Mohan Gandhi will say that ultimately we can change Indian society if enough people commit themselves to changing it. Each one of us has to make a decision. What is the aim of my life? Am I going to work for equality? Am I going to work for justice? Am I going to work for including everybody, not excluding anybody? If enough of us make that deep decision that whatever the price we may have to pay, we will fight for equality, we will fight for justice, we will fight for inclusiveness, then eventually India will be changed. And of course, this has to be done also politically and socially, with wisdom, with alliances, with strategy, with tactics. But the foundation of change is the individual commitment. And this is why I may say, Father, because you're also a father, you are a professor, but you're also a priest. And I want to say that for me to be here with all of you, with Father Provincial, Father Rector, Father Principal, with so many others, and others who are not priestly, but Loyola College to me is a place of consecration, of dedication, of commitment. That is why I'm so happy to be here, and that is why we are discussing these fundamental questions here.
I think we can have a commercial break by way of clapping heartily. You are not only the first one to say so. Some time back, the Pondicherry University Vice Chancellor also said the same thing when he was addressing the gathering during the convocation. But this sacred place, to what extent it can further empower our students in terms of cultivating secularism. Your suggestion for us, you said you wanted to learn. Right now you can teach us in what way we can empower our students with regard to cultivating the culture of secularism, inclusiveness, embracing all people, and so on.
Thank you, sir. So, my first suggestion on that question is each one of us must be a good listener. I'm now 84 plus. I've traveled all over India. I've written many books. I've studied Indian society, Indian life. I've also been in other parts of the world. But this discovery I have made about India, we in India are a great nation of talkers. We are very poor listeners. So the first step for anyone who wants to play a part in making India truly secular and truly just, we must listen to each other and really know the lives of other people. We have so many opinions, we don't have knowledge. We feel that Muslims are like this, Christians are like this, Hindus are like this, Dalits are like this, but we don't know them. We don't listen to them. We have not studied their lives or their stories. So foundation principle, listen, study, gather information, gather knowledge. Second important principle, learn to work as a team. This too is very important for our country. In my long association with Indian life, also with Indian political life, after Indira Gandhi was defeated, Morarji Desai, Charan Singh and Jagjeevan Ram came to power. They could not get along. And then when VP Singh came, there was Chandrasekhar, Devilal, VP Singh, and these three could not get along. In Delhi, the Aam Aadmi Party won 67 seats out of 70 seats, but then Arvind Kejriwal and Prashant Bhushan and Yogendra Yadav could not get along. So the secret of success in secularism or democratic rights or fight for justice is that the fighters for justice must remain united. If you have a team in your college of young people, make sure that you develop real teamwork, that you're really proud and happy when your colleague is successful, that when your colleague does better than you, you become stronger, that your cause becomes stronger when the team is stronger. So teamwork, unity, making the other person great is one part of the secret of advancing towards justice.
Good. We can have a little conversation across the floor right now. Now the floor is open. The mic konja ready ah irukren. Floor across the floor. He's a good listener. He's a good team. He's a good at team working also. And also he can incorporate any number of questions for us. Now it is over to the floor over there. Come over there. Babu, anga kadasila ponga. Just say your name, your department. Who is the next one? You can just raise your hand. Who is the next one? Anyway. Here. Next one.
Check.
Just pick up your...
Check.
Yes, go ahead.
My name is John Knox, and I work with the Department of English, Loyola College. My question also comes from a place where I am trying to learn a particular thing that I could use. There has been a particularly toxic rhetoric that appeals to the majoritarian minority complex, as you put it, misleading them to misdirect their pent-up anger towards the minority other. Gandhiji had unified the nation despite similar tendencies that existed during his time. So is there any particular rhetorical device that we can take from Gandhi to counteract the prevalent toxic rhetoric and appeal to a heterogeneous group at the same time?
How to ensure heterogeneity in the midst of the toxic rhetoric in favor of majoritarianism?
One success Gandhi had was that in his team, also there was good heterogeneity. There was Nehru, there was Patel, there was the Maulana Azad, there was Ambedkar. You know, afterwards, Ambedkar, Gandhi again had disputes, or after Gandhi's death, Ambedkar said some strong things against Gandhi. But for those 3 years, Ambedkar was a close colleague of Gandhi. And there was a Sardar Baldev Singh, and there were women. So the first Indian cabinet of August 1947 is worth looking at. It was an amazingly diverse cabinet. So Gandhi was able to appeal to the Indian people on the basis also of the variety and diversity of his own team. And Gandhi was committed. And many of his close colleagues, Jawaharlal Nehru, he may have had many weaknesses, but on the question of secularism and rights of minorities, protection of minority rights, Jawaharlal Nehru was absolutely committed. So these commitment of those who were governing India also had a very large part to play in ensuring that despite the horrors of partition, Muslims, despite the atrocities, for so many years, for 60, 70 years, India has remained a secular nation. Not necessarily in practice giving justice to everybody, but at least on paper, at least as far as the law was concerned, ensuring that everybody would have equal rights. Today we are in a different situation, not just in India, but in many parts of the world. But at the very least, if we are to have any chance of succeeding in this atmosphere, we again need to create a diverse team of leaders from different backgrounds, each of whom has to be fully committed, and all of whom put the other person first and not so bothered about their own place in the leadership, but who are more interested in the goal than who is to get the credit or who is to get this position or that position. So to create a united team of passionately committed men and women, that has to be our immediate task.
Good. Next question. Yeah.
Hello, sir. I'm Tipston from Department of English. So, considering what's happening in the country these days, do you think we resort to violence for the societies to stay non-violent? Is it? It's like, do you think the authorities and the governments are very keen on instilling fear in order to make people silent, which they think that would keep the country non-violent? Because one recent example I would like to quote is the extrajudicial killings of the supposed rapists of Hyderabad, which people celebrated like it's justice prevailing. But then when you open up a talk on a discourse on how this is wrong and how you need to change individually, you need to change your mindset regarding this, it is you must feel it is immoral and you should not fear a law and therefore resort from doing it. You should stop yourself from doing it because you feel it is immoral. You must know it is immoral, right? So, do you think it is we resorting to violence in order to make this society stay non-violent today?
I will answer your very important question, for which I thank you. I will try to answer it by quoting what Gandhi said to an African American leader in 1946 and 1947. This man's name is William Stewart Nelson, who was from Howard University in Washington, D.C., which is an African American university. He was an African American man. He was in India in 46 and 47, and he said to Gandhi, Gandhiji, for the last 30 years, you have been preaching non-violence to India. Why is there so much violence in India? So Gandhi's answer was something like this. Gandhi said, I've been saying two things to the Indian people. Fear not and hate not. I've been saying to the Indian people, don't be afraid of the white ruler. And I've also been saying to them, don't hate the white man. So Gandhi said to the African American gentleman, the first advice they liked. They liked the idea, fear not. But they did not like the idea, hate not. That they were reluctant to give up hatred. And hatred of the white man soon became hatred of Hindu against Muslim, of Muslim against Hindu. So hatred is a reality in India today. So those of us who want to make India a nation of equal rights, of equality, have to know how to combat hatred. This is not an easy task, but it's a task that must be taken. And of course, one way of combating hatred is to say from prominent platforms that hatred is wrong. Sadly, today we have reached a position where those who occupy the most eminent places not only do not condemn hatred, they sometimes encourage hatred. So this is one very important thing we have to realize. But there's more to your answering your important question, but I think you get the general idea of what I am trying to say.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm Arvind from Department of 3D Animation. So you are saying, thank
Just
you for...
close to the microphone. Close to
thank you for reminding and explaining the role of the national integration, role of Gandhi and his associates on national integration. So my question is, do we have the right circumstances now for emergence of another Mahatma? And also, does it have to be a person, or can it be a dogma or a book? So yeah, my question is, do we have the right circumstances for emergence of another person like Mahatma?
Can we recreate Mahatma or create a new Mahatma? Is there a possibility? Is Indian womb ready for giving birth a new Mahatma?
Any nation that looks for a Mahatma is not going to succeed. India did not get Gandhi because India was saying we need somebody like Gandhi. Gandhi was a young man, a human being, full of weaknesses, full of imperfections, but he made some deep personal decisions. He gave his life. People then said he was a Mahatma, and he did what he did. Today, we must not wait for another Mahatma, nor should we only ask what would Gandhi want us to do. We have to ask our minds and our consciences, what should we now do? And each one of us has to be ready to go to the ultimate extent in discipline, in study, in patience, in building teamwork. We must become catalysts for a new revolution. Again, easier said than done, but it starts with each person making a decision. And there's one other thing I want to quote from, it's not Gandhi's line, but he liked to quote it. You perhaps know it. It is from a song written by a man called Newman, who then became a Catholic. He wrote a song called Lead Kindly Light, which was one of Gandhi's favorite songs. And there's a line in that song, I do not ask to see the distant scene, one step enough for me. Yes, we should have a vision, we should have an idea of what we want to achieve, but we must also think of the next simple step. What will I do tomorrow? Who will I enlist tomorrow? How will I respond to this horrible statement today? So if some of us are determined to be totally given to the task, and we are ready to take the next step wisely, in teamwork, we will make progress, but we must not wait for another great leader to emerge from somewhere. Absolutely not.
Good. One more hand there. Then you come next.
My name is Xavier. Gandhi, when he was fighting for the independence, there was a very specific goal, attain the independence. So he was able to rally around people and, of course, non-violence as a sort of a method. Now, in this current context, what is that one singular goal that can rally around people for a non-violence? And if yes, who actually would be sort of participating in it? And will there be any kind of a leader that, something very similar to, not another Mahatma, but we need some people to lead, whether it will be one person or multiple person. So my question is, what would be the singular goal that can rally around masses across the nation in a non-violent way and to realize that goal? Like,
Good.
Thank you for a very great question. But to some extent, to a large extent, your question has already been answered. Now, these protests that are taking place all across India, they are spontaneous protests. No political leader has called for those protests. The students have led the protests. Women and men have led the protests. People of different religions have led the protests. And what is their slogan? One slogan is Constitution must be preserved. Secularism must be preserved. Equality must be preserved. There should be no discrimination. You know, many of us have prejudices. Many Hindus have prejudices about Muslims, and perhaps many Muslims have prejudices about Hindus. But when a law is passed which says that we will discriminate, we will have this for everybody else but not for Muslims, that was too much for many Indians to accept. Discrimination was anathema to most people, even if they were prejudiced people. They did not want to bless discrimination as a legitimate policy. So no discrimination, equality, secularism, respect to. So these are great goals. And already there is a fight taking place in India under the banner of those goals. But there is another important task. You know, India does also have a world role to play. Today, as everybody knows, the Indian footprint is present everywhere in the world. When I'm in America, I turn on the television and I find that somebody who explains a very intricate American problem, whether it is a problem about health or about economics or the stock market or about space, often it is a person of Indian origin who's explaining America to Americans. And the same is true in Australia, in Canada, in UK, in Europe, many parts of the world. Indians have a great world role to play. So what is to be India's role? Are we to promote ethno-nationalism, some kind of hatred, some kind of inequality? India's destiny, India's role is to present the fight for an equal society. And it should be not only a fight within India, it should be something that should inspire the world. When ethno-nationalism is sweeping across the world, India has a chance today. And these students who are organizing these protests all over the world, they have already shown the way. We have to follow them. We are no longer having to search. Of course, we have to make sure that those who are protesting remain non-violent. We have to make sure that those who are protesting remain united. They don't have squabbles with each other. But a very impressive beginning has to be made. We must follow them, and we must bring the right qualities to the struggle.
We got the domination from the English literature headed by Dr. Antony Sami. What about the eminent historian here, the Department of History headed by Dr. Anuradha? Questions from there. We need to have some sharp historiographical questions. Over to you right now.
We all of a sudden started blaming for what is happening.
Close to the microphone, yeah.
We all of a sudden started blaming someone for what is happening today. But I would like to blame the 70 years of history. 70 years of history, we have been silent for 70 years. And after 30 years of the independence, we added the word secular to the constitution. Why so? At the same time, nationalism, if we want to be nation to be peaceful, the local level we should be peaceful. How many of us are peaceful at local level? How many of us are away from the casteism? And you're talking, you are just telling all the Indians are good speakers but not listeners. I would like to say we don't practice. My question is, why the leaders of the nation, including Gandhi, has failed to marry their children to the Dalits? That's what my question.
Let me start with the last question. It is true that Gandhi did not persuade any of his 4 sons to marry Dalits. So you can say that that was Gandhi's failure, and I will not dispute it. And it is also true that Gandhi's 4 sons had many children. As far as I know, very few of them, or none of them has married Dalits. So you can rightly say that Gandhi's family has not given the right example to India. So I will not dispute that statement. But let me also add that so many people who worked closely with Gandhi have married Dalits. They have. And so many, and I know many of them I don't know whether you've heard of this amazing man, Chunibhai Vaid in Gujarat. He was not a member of Gandhi's family in terms of biological descent, but he became an active member of the Gandhi family in spirit. And he married a Dalit lady. That is just one example. If you say that the Gandhi family could have done so much better, I would agree, and Gandhi would be the first person to agree. But I would also request you not to underestimate the impact that Gandhi's passionate fight has made on so many people all over the world, all over India. Yes, the Dalits are suffering a very great deal, but at least some of the so-called higher castes are today willing to fight for Dalit rights. And in that achievement, Gandhi has played his part. Yes, Periyar has played a great part. Ambedkar has played a great part. But Gandhi also has played a great part. When Kasturba did not enter a temple, when Kasturba went to a temple in Orissa, which was banned for Dalits, Gandhi wrote a public statement attacking his wife. Can you imagine the impact that had on millions of families? Can you imagine the impact that when Gandhi says to his wife, you can leave the ashram, but the Dalits will stay in my ashram? Those were not small things. So, and when the constitution was passed in the Constituent Assembly, and that article about banning untouchability, that untouchability shall cease to exist, when that was passed, the entire Constituent Assembly rose in an ovation to thank Gandhi. Why did they do that? It was an assembly of caste Hindus that passed a resolution against untouchability. It did not happen automatically. It happened because Gandhi fought for it. Yes, Gandhi's fight was limited, it was insufficient, fully agree. So we must continue the fight.
The last question for us today, okay, you're the one. Okay, there is a womanly voice, you first, then behind. From which department you are from? Your name?
I am Devasayam from School of Human Excellence. Good afternoon, sir. Now the right-wing forces are emerging very alarmingly. How it happened. And this is the time that we have to evaluate ourselves. What we have missed in the past to do the things which can strengthen this country as secular state. So this is what we have missed, what we have not done so far to strengthen this country as a secular state, according to you.
This is a very difficult question, not so easy to answer. So many things we have not done well. But you know, take one, in today's Indian scenario, the hope comes from South India. North India has gone very much in the direction of majoritarianism. But South India still stands for secularism. Tamil Nadu does, Kerala does, and to some extent even people in Karnataka, Telangana and Andhra, they also. And they also fight for states' rights, so that is also a very important fight for democracy. Federalism is a very important part of the Indian system. We have to fight for it. And secularism and federalism are intimately connected. But take South India. In Karnataka, how many of them feel solidarity with Tamil Nadu? In Kerala, Telangana, Andhra, how many feel solidarity for the rest of South India? So I want the people of South India to realize, one, that South India is a very important bulwark against right-wing forces today. But how to protect South India and how to help South India lead all of India towards a successful defense of secularism is a great question. And for that, South India needs to attain much greater solidarity. If South Indian states really become friends with one another and partners with one another, they will form a very powerful force to defeat right-wing reactionary forces across India.
Okay, your question. Where is the microphone?
Sir. Sir, here.
First, after her, you proceed. You go ahead, ma'am. You go ahead.
I am Dr. Preeti. My question is it really possible to build a self-sufficient India, which was the economic thought of Gandhiji, in wake of all the discrimination that's happening in the villages? Self-sufficient villages, is it a possibility? Because we have a lot of discrimination found predominantly in villages. That's my first question. And the second one is, how different is Make in India proposed by Mr. Modi different from Gandhi's concept of self-reliance?
Self-reliance.
Self-reliance, Gandhi's self-reliance.
Self-reliant village
Mr.
and
Modi's
self-helping. Yeah.
Make in India.
So, I will answer your second question because I heard it. Your first question I could not hear. My ears were not so sharp. But I will try to answer your second question. How different is Make in India from Gandhi's self-reliance or Swadeshi? A very important question. You know, one weakness about Make in India is most things that come under the name Make in India are made in China.
Oh.
You know, the Vallabhbhai Patel statue was built in China. And Chinese workers, hundreds of them came even as workers to install the statue. So that is one difference between Gandhi's spinning, weaving, and this so-called Make in India. Because of Gandhi's spinning and weaving idea and passion, you know, we are in another generation. Gandhi died 70 years ago. You must have some idea of how through spinning and weaving and self-reliance and khadi, an amazing bond was created between the village and the town, between men and women, between old people and young people. A revolution was started. And every Indian who was a consumer also became a producer. That was Gandhi's self-reliance. But you are right that in today's world, just self-reliance is not enough, although it's very necessary. We must learn the art of building partnerships with neighbors, even neighbors across the sea. So interdependence is as important as self-reliance, in my opinion.
Good. Last one.
Sir, Aung San Suu Kyi in Myanmar.
Myanmar.
She's maintaining a deafening silent persecution of Rohingyas. So can we consider that as a failure of Gandhism? Because she was very much influenced by Gandhiji.
So Aung San Suu Kyi was influenced by Gandhi. Therefore, when Aung San Suu Kyi allows Rohingyas to be ill-treated, it is Gandhi's fault. But Gandhi was influenced by the Sermon on the Mount. So do we say that Rohingyas is a failure of Sermon on the Mount? So all of us are inspired by many great goals, We don't always practice them. And sometimes when there is a difficult situation, Aung San Suu Kyi has to keep her power because the army is there. So she does the army's bidding. If you blame Gandhi for that, I think you should blame Gandhi for everything. And he will take it. But your question is an important one. That when we acquire an image, as Aung San Suu Kyi acquired, fighter for democratic rights, and then we let down people's hopes, it's a terrible, terrible disillusionment. So we must learn from that. Any one of us who, because of the stand we take, we get some respect, maybe some popularity, we get some attention, may we never let down people. May we never betray people's hopes. That is the lesson we must learn from Aung San Suu Kyi. The lesson is not that Gandhi was to blame.
That's great of you, Dr. Gandhi. You know, what are the take-backs that we could have for carrying home? You know, the whole question of, from the discourse on Gandhi, don't canonize Gandhi, go beyond Gandhi. Gandhi is not a solution, Vali Nivarani 24/7 for all seasons. Somehow, let Gandhi be a springboard, and perhaps we need to have an ideological construction from various sectors, liberative structures in terms of ideological positions. For example, we need Gandhism, we need Ambedkarism, we need Periyarism, we need to have Marxism. In which permutation and combination we need to have an ideological clarity, spiritual clarity, and a practical clarity. To what extent we can have the homework together, not as a single individual leaders. You know, history doesn't move because of the leaders, because of the collective consciousness which is very much awakened together. So on this particular count, what are the needs of the hour? An ethics of egalitarianism and an aesthetics of solidarity and the empowerment with the humanization. Let me repeat these three bullets. We learn from Gandhian heritage the ethics of egalitarianism, the aesthetics of solidarity, and also the empowerment with the humanization. And you know, whatever be the nature of the violence, habituated violence, traditional violence, brute violence, physiological violence, psychological violence, symbolic violence, and hegemonic violence, where the violence is not at all realized by the victim himself, herself. Violence is cherished by the victim. That is hegemonic violence. With all these things, we come to learn, come on, this is a time for us. Every moment of crisis is an opportune moment for us. And at this particular moment, a simple life is creating a sort of major transformation in the entire surroundings. The simplicity of life would enable us to go ahead with fear not, hate not, never become a slave, never enslave others. And at this particular juncture, we learn from Gandhi certain critical historicity. Reread history with a critical outlook from the location of the victims, be it the Dalits or be it the marginalized, be it the migrants and so on. Locate the rereading of the history from the location of the victims. And let the memory of the history of violence be forgotten. Let not the memory of the history of violence be forgotten. We need to reread. Then only we can create a non-violent society. And do not look for a Mahatma elsewhere. Look for a Mahatma inside. Let there be a network of Mahatmas everywhere together as a community, and that is how we construct our nation together. Thank you so much for being with us, for very much inspiring us, for enabling us to think aloud with you, with Gandhi. And now over to you.
Thank you. Feeling thankfulness and not expressing it is like wrapping a gift and not giving it. Hence, I take this opportunity to invite Dr. S. Josephine, faculty, Lizard, to put all our gratitude into words.
A very good afternoon to one and all gathered here. The best and beautiful things in the world cannot be seen or even touched. They must be felt by the heart. Thank you is one such prayer among them. I consider it a great privilege to propose the vote of thanks for this occasion. The hardest arithmetic to master is that which enables us to count our blessings. I thank the Almighty for His gracious blessings in making today's event possible. On behalf of the management and the fraternity of Loyola campus, I express my sincere thanks to our honorable chief guest, Dr. Raj Mohan Gandhi, for taking out time from his busy schedule to enlighten us on the Gandhian thoughts. Special thanks, dear sir, for making this session more lively and interactive. I thank our esteemed provincial, Reverend Dr. Jabamale Raja, and our beloved rector, Reverend Dr. Francis P. Xavier, for having blessed us and graced this occasion. I take this opportunity to thank Reverend Father Thomas Amirdim, Principal, Loyola College, for his unstinted support. My heartfelt thanks to our ever-available Reverend Dr. Selvanayagam S.J., Secretary, Loyola College, for his cooperation in the organization of this event. With great sense of gratitude, I offer my sincere thanks to the directors of the various Loyola institutions in campus, Reverend Dr. Joe Arun S.J., Director Liba, Reverend Dr. Maria Venish S.J., Director Lisette, and Reverend Dr. Sebastian S.J., Secretary, Loyola College of Education, for their availability at all times and encouragement. I would like to express my thankfulness to the organizing committee, headed by Reverend Dr. Maria Arul Raja S.J., Director of IDCR, and the team, Dr. Gladson Xavier, Dr. Bernard, Dr. Gautam, and Ms. Maria Carolyn, for their meticulous planning and execution. They indeed worked hard to ensure the smooth functioning of this event. I express my appreciation and acknowledgement to each and every one who has contributed to the organization of this event. Last but not the least, I wish to thank all the faculty members for making this event a success by their presence. Thank you once again.
Thank you, ma'am. An event cannot happen overnight. The wheels started rolling many weeks ago with meticulous planning to make this event possible in the history of Loyola campus. Therefore, the management of Loyola deserves great appreciation for bringing an eminent scholar and a very good speaker for an edifying session. Once again, a big thanks to one and all gathered here. Kindly rise for the national anthem.